1st, about 5:55 a.m. Wanted to dream vlog before I forgot it. I had this dream. There was a Hispanic people living by me, which it is now, but um, in real life, they're family. But in the dream, they are not. It's like a bunch of like migrant workers, and they're Mexican. I saw one that was like Afro Mexican. He was real kind hearted or kind spirited. He was always like 5'3". He kind of looked like what a light skinned mixed person would look like. And and he was very kind spirited. But I happened to walk out of the house to go check the mailbox, and the mailbox, somebody has cemented over. So my mailbox is like housed in a brick column. Somebody cemented over the whole front of the mailbox. Not only that, and I saw that it was cemented over, right? So I think I went back into the house to do something, to figure out what my next plan was. And when I came back out, like a couple of hours later, not only was the whole front of the mailbox cemented over, but they had taken it off of its foundation, and it was sitting broken, not broken, but it was full, but it was taken off of its foundation. The bottom of it was kind of raggedy. Like you could tell they didn't cleanly cut it off or whatever. It was like in a fit of anger. It was torn off of the foundation and placed into the ditch beside it, or knocked over into the ditch beside it. And the mailbox, which is probably about 5 feet or so in real life, in the ditch, it was broken off to the point where it was maybe like 4.5 feet. So 6 inches of the base was still there. And not only that, but I have like a patio umbrella. Again, it was just to block the people that live next to me from coming in, the black people. But but that patio umbrella was broken too, and I didn't realize it was broken at first. I didn't realize it was broken at first, but it was placed into the ditch by it. So when I tried to pull the umbrella up, that's when I realized that had been broken as well. And, allowed to fall into the ditch or placed in the ditch. So at that point, I was starting to go back in the house. I didn't know what to do. I'm like, what in the world? And the young Hispanic guy, he had to be like maybe 22, 23. He was like Afro-Hispanic. He was like really, really light-skinned, curly hair. And his hair was like mine curly. It wasn't like oily. It wasn't like my curly. And he said to me in Spanish, like broken Spanish, he asked me, did I need to know who took it out? He was concerned about me. And at first I didn't catch on because I wasn't paying attention. And then I realized he was asking me, and I was just like, that would be helpful, And then he started to walk me back out to the ditch to try to help me get the mailbox out of the ditch. But when we got back out to the street, there was a truck. I didn't even realize it was a tow truck, but it was because it was so small. It belonged to a black female. But I didn't realize it. Like I said, it was parked up a little further. It was dark outside. I didn't know what was going on. And so the person at the tow truck had put the mailbox that was discarded into the ditch on the back of that truck. It was like a flatbed tow truck, with just a cab and a flatbed. But it was small. It was probably the size of a large, like a hotel shuttle van, right? And the cab was a lot smaller than what you would normally see. So, I saw the lady and I didn't know what to say because it was just a weird situation. And I'm just like, that's my mailbox that you got on the back of your truck. Why do you have my mailbox? And then I don't know if I tried to physically get up there and take it down, but she was just like, well, we'll get it down in a minute. I need to finish my route or whatever. So she told me to get in with her. My dumb ass got in. And the dream switched from where I am in Valdosta to we were in Atlanta, like South Atlanta, like where there's a big long street. I forget the name of the street. I don't know if it's Terra or what, but there's a big mall by it somewhere. But we were in South Atlanta. And there was like some little building there. And I've had a dream about this building before, but it's got to be like 20, 30 years ago, 20 years ago. But so she was just like, just wait. She got to take care of stuff. So there was like a bunch of random people in there. I don't know if there was homeless or indigent or what the problem is. Like I said, I always fit in. I hate that now. I used to intentionally try to fit into those places, but now I fit in without trying. So I was sitting there, I was waiting patiently. Next thing you know, the next day has come. It's the next morning. And one of the girls that I had spoke with while I was there, she had this lip gloss, and I think I had it. And it had a name on it. And the name of it was somebody that I went to college with, right? And I was like, she was like, something, can I have my lip gloss back? And I was like, what? And I was like, do you know such and such the name on the lip gloss? And she was like, oh yeah, it's been passed down, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, wow, we've done kissed like about 30 people because I remember when she had it, I was in college and we used to share it. And she actually got it from someone else, So I think now looking back on the dream, it was probably like one of those places that's a shelter or a temporary place for homeless people. And I think that lip gloss was probably donated or something. That's why so many people had it. But at that point, I was waiting. And so I was waiting for the tow truck lady. And so I asked another lady that I was with, I was like, hey, when can you take me back, to my place? But in the dream, it was like something about my mom. And then they were shocked that I was still there and I was actually waiting for her. Because I think what the lady did, it was kind of snide, was she just went to a homeless shelter and just from where I lived at. Ooh, all of this is coming together. I'm going to tell y'all the real life parallel to this dream. But she was trying to be snide and drop me off at a homeless shelter. I guess because she was trying to steal my mailbox. And, that was her way of saying, oh, you fit right in with these people. I'm just going to leave you here. And then eventually she came back. She was back there for the next day. She had left. She came back, which is ironic. And she was like, oh, come on then, let's go, whatever. And her mom she had her mom or somebody was there. And the girl had like long braids and the mom actually looked younger and more put together than the daughter, but you could tell there was a lot of similarities. And the mom was asking me questions, and I couldn't get what she was asking me, but the daughter was like, she wanted to know if her hair looked dead. And I was like, yeah, it looks fine, And then as we were coming out onto the porch of the place, I noticed there was like discarded, like you would see like when stores throw away stuff, but it hasn't been opened or tampered, discarded like nail polishes and whatever. And in an attempt just for me to make conversation, I wasn't interested in that stuff. I was like, oh, that's not even open. And they were like, yeah. And then I said, yeah, when I get braids or whatever, when I get my hair done, they only last about a week. And then the girl sounded like she didn't believe me. She was like, oh, a week. And I was like, well, actually, it started to get real frizzy within 2 to 3 days. I was just trying to make conversation. But you could tell that they had an opinion of me and they didn't really care about me. And that was the rest of the dream. Now, what sparked this dream and the real life parallel to that I didn't really catch in the dream the first time going around? Well, yesterday, okay, so I haven't been outside a whole lot, but for the past few days, I would go check the mailbox and I found, like maybe last week, a couple of pieces of mail that didn't belong to me. I had a really hard battle with the post office and stop delivering mail that doesn't belong to me. They're just inadequate. And I know because it's not just me, because when I moved from my old place, I put in my change of address immediately. And about a year later, I received a piece of mail where they sent to the old place and the person was mad, just like I was. Like, this person does not live here. Same thing with me. So Man, I'm mad. Um, so now I have something in my eye. I don't know what's going on. But so, yeah, so I noticed that I had a few pieces of mail that didn't belong to me. And some of the mail looks like junk mail, but it's not. It's literally from, people's employers and stuff, and it's directed to them, right? So, I took the time, as I normally do, to cross it out, right? Return to sender. Sender does not live here, you know, but I haven't had that issue probably about almost a year now, right? Almost. I see the stuff on my informed delivery, but it's directed to someone else, but I don't ever get it. By the time it gets to me, it's sorted out. But I had like a real hard battle with the post office. But like I said, it's not just me; it's somebody else too. Because I saw where they were still delivering my mail to the wrong address, even though the change of address was put in immediately. Because I ended up getting that mail a year later, which is crazy. But yes, I did return to sender and I put the date on it. I always do that. And it's like 3 or 4 pieces of mail. And I'm like, okay, they'll see it and they'll pick it up because they've gotten really good about it, right? But then I come back to my mailbox again yesterday. It's almost filled with mail that does not belong to me, you know? So I do the same thing, return to sender, return to sender, return to sender, right? And it's like 7 pieces of mail. And this time I'm really pissed because I'm like, you see where I put this big ass marker on it that says return to sender. So I scheduled for them to come and pick that shit up, you know? And I was really angry about it. I had a lot because, it's stuff like that gets on my nerves. And we're going to talk about mindset again because it does get on my nerves. And the reason why is because there's only 24 hours in a day. And with me, stuff always happens. My allergies came back for a little bit yesterday. And then I took, the pain medication, which the Aleve or whatever, which, I'm just keeping up regularly now. And it knocked me out. I don't know if it knocked me out or if I was inadvertently up all night, because I wasn't well. But I fell asleep for like 4 hours yesterday, literally 4 hours. It felt like, okay. And when I woke up, I was still like groggy and drowsy. So I lost a lot of yesterday. And then when I start working on stuff, about an hour or two in, my allergies start acting up again. I'm like, what in the world? And then that wasn't the first obstacle that I had to overcome. So I started working on stuff and I'm real particular about how my computers and shit are set up. And I hate when, like I hate Microsoft Edge and all that bullshit because they're always taking liberties they shouldn't. And if you have Office, you have, you have your login or whatever, and it'll log you into all the Edge and shit like that. So I have to always go back and double check that they didn't log me into Edge, even though I never even fucking opened Edge, and then start giving you quote unquote reward points that you don't fucking want. So my setback was, then I removed the weather toolbar. Somehow the weather toolbar popped up again. And not only did it pop up again, but it popped up where the option to remove it was grayed out. So I'm like, what the fuck? And so I'm really getting pissed. At this time, I'm getting really irritated because that's taking 10 minutes out of my time to figure out what the fuck is going on, right? And so, at this point in my head, I'm reaffirming that, hey, once I start making money, on my own, like residual income and shit, I'm staying off the fucking computer because it annoys me so much. Like I said, it's so invasive to me. You know what I'm saying? Like you fix something and then all of a sudden, they do an update and all that shit that you took off or whatever for your security purposes. They put that shit all the way back on. You know what I'm saying? And that shit pisses me off. Your computer and shit ain't really yours, and especially if you work somewhere remotely where it's remotely and you use your own device. I don't want to use my own fucking equipment no more. I hate that shit because then you have to reset everything because they do some shit to fuck your shit up. And it's not just your computer that you're using for that job, but anything that's on that system, And so that shit pisses me the fuck off. And so I'm, I don't want to take time to try to figure out, unless I'm getting paid for it. I don't want to troubleshoot shit, And so then that was the first little hurdle. It was 15 minutes, but it really annoyed me. But I had a resolution in my mind that what's going to happen when I make residual income, which I'm trying to, but whatever. We're trying. I'm not going to give up. Mindset. And so I had to, how I can use mindset in that situation is, again, yeah, it's annoying, but we look to the future, what our end goal is and what we can do to get there. We got to face reality. Reality is, you know, I need to use the computer. But next up, so I'm working along. Everything seems to be going okay. I'm slowly going through my task list and I'm happy. Do. Next thing I know, my allergies start coming back full force. No reason at all, it seems no reason. And I'm like, oh Lord, here they come. And so that, I hadn't taken an allergy pill in a couple days, like since last week. For whatever reason, October has been holy horror, even when I didn't know it. Because even when I was at that place that was crazy, I was like, okay, it's easy. It don't make sense. I haven't had any problems that these other people are having. But shit, who wants to spend hours a day trying to sort out a fucking paycheck or sit somewhere and work somewhere and you don't know if you're going to get paid? Who wants to, and if work just means showing up and being there, and that's not the real job. Like I said, there's no way that you're paying hundreds and hundreds of people X amount of dollars an hour just to sit there. You know that you got way too many people and you know that you need to let some of these fucking people go. You know what I'm saying? But now you got these people faithfully showing up, and some of them honestly ain't doing shit anyway. They doing whatever the fuck they want to do because they're on Zoom and you can hear them having whole ass conversations. It's just, that's not where I wanted to be. Not at all. So, yeah. So pissed off. But the reality of that is, that's where you decide, is it money or not? And I told y'all how I feel about that, because everything's a transaction. You might get money and you might not be doing anything, but there was a cost associated with it. You just are not privy to the cost. And that cost is your time, your mindset, all of that. And then I have to spend hours, back and forth. And then they're happy to just shoot off some fucking email. They got everything they need. So I'm, that got on my nerves. I'm so glad when it's over. But then from there, like I said, the allergies started kicking in. And I still try to work through my allergies. But then when I was working through my allergies, then I was just like, hell... I kept hearing stuff outside. I don't know what was going on. Somebody was fucking with my shit or what the deal was. And so, how they say black people don't, when they hear noise, they don't go out to see what it is. Well, I'm going to tell you something. And I shouldn't say this, but it's true. And this is dumb, just like me telling that 14-year-old boy, oh, I was just vlogging about that. My dumb ass. That's not a child. He can fuck you up. You know what I'm saying? Don't. But, by age and legally that's a child, but that young boy can fuck you up. He is not out here riding his bicycle and enjoying candies and treats. He's out there in some fucked up shit. And I thought about that boy long after that situation happened, because even though I was really, really scared of him, and he did follow me literally for blocks. Like, he would have followed me all the way home if I hadn't ducked behind his house and hid. You know what I'm saying? And then that older man that came out, I don't know what the situation was. Couldn't tell he was older at first. I don't know if he called him, whatever. But I think that he was actually maybe watching out for me. Maybe, I don't know. Like I said, you never know who's watching your vlog, but maybe he's watching a vlog and was just like, oh, I know that girl is on the other street. So he just came outside. Or he could have been scared of me because maybe he saw me duck behind the house and maybe somebody called him to check on, see what the hell I was doing. Was I some unscrupulous person? Or I could have walked past his house and, who knows? I don't know. But that shit was scary as fuck. But anyhow, and that was, and that's the confusing thing to me, because legally that's a boy. But in real life, that boy scared the fuck out of me. You know what I'm saying? He's bigger than me. He's more built than me. And he's probably been through some shit where he don't even give a fuck no more, right? But in the back of my mind, even though I'm scared half to death, after I get home, after a few hours have gone by the next day, I start thinking about him. What if he just wanted to talk? What if something happened with his mom or something and he just needed to talk? But my ass is too scared. But I have a right to be scared, and no offense to that boy or his family, but I have a right to be scared, because if you look at the news, at all of the shootings and killings and shit, and Valdosta is only 5 miles. They're teenagers, like as young as 12 years old, 12 to 16, 23, they're young between that age, I've seen them as young as 12 in the news, right around the corner. Everything's within a 5 mile radius, you know? And so, he knew better, even if he's a boy, I already told him I was scared. And then for him to follow and pretend like he's looking for, a charger or whatever, he wasn't, it's crazy. It's crazy. I don't know. And I'm tired of people having kids, they're not watching. And even though they're teenagers, and I try to think back when I was a teenager, 14, 15, I wasn't supposed to be outside. I would sneak out sometimes, just not doing anything bad, just out there walking. But as a teenager, and there shouldn't be any teenagers on my channel, but as a teenager, if I had something to say to them, I mean, you don't understand, and I wish somebody would have told me too, but you sound like a punk if you're an adult and you're telling, what's legally a child this, but and I kind of wanted to tell him this, so I told him I was scared, and I did tell him this, that, basically from far away, I can't tell who or what you are. All I know is that it's a male. I can see a male figure. I can't tell if it's a child and it's just a black shadow. As a teenager, if I had something to say to teenagers, as a teenager, you're just as big as adults. You know what I'm saying? You have the same form as a lot of adults. So from far away, especially at night, and we always see the silhouette, you're very scary and threatening, to some. We don't know what your intentions are or anything like that. And I mean, it's scary. It's scary to me. But I did think about that person, and I hate the way that I go back and forth with that. Like, on the one hand, you see that, legally it's a child, and you want to, be like, oh, we need to watch out for him, blah, blah, blah. But then you realize that, hey, even though legally by the world standards, this is a child, that this person can really fuck you up. They could box you in the back of your head. There have been stories already in the news where there have been teenagers that killed like homeless people, killed like elderly people, went to an elderly complex to stomp an elderly person, and just beat them to death, man, just walking across the street, beat them to death, and I don't want to die like that. That's not the way that I want to go, whatever way God sees fit for me to go is going to be it. But but you can't really, because like I said, I look back at me when I was a teenager. You can't really, you could tell your child, don't go, whatever, but peer pressure, but he wasn't even with anybody. He was by himself. And that tells me that maybe there was a problem. Something happened. Is he being abused at home? Like, what's the deal? But it's so funny. Like I said, I watch TikTok videos about how they say you ask about how somebody else is doing or is somebody else okay? But shit, you couldn't help them even if it wasn't. In that situation, if something was going on with him, I couldn't help him. One, I could feel the energy with him. It was like real volatile, almost like when I told y'all I was at the train station and that boy was like 19 years old and he kept looking at me and I was wondering why he was looking at me. It was scary like that. Like it could go either way, it couldn't go either way, that, he could fuck me up. But when when we actually had a conversation, I found out that he really been through some shit, but I still was real careful because I didn't want to, trigger him, in any kind of way where he's going to go off on me, even though what he was saying was scaring the shit out of me, Kids are not allowed to be kids anymore. They've been through more at 8 or 9. That boy that I ran into told me he was selling drugs, and he'd been selling drugs since he was 8 because his mama told him to. So I couldn't even say, what was your mom say? He said his mom told him to, So I'm just going to put this in the universe. There shouldn't be any kids here, but I'm putting it to the universe. If you are a teenager, do not approach me on the street. You know what I'm saying? If you can be respectful, I'd appreciate it. And move. I'm scared to move sometimes because I'm like, if that offends you now, you're going to come after me. But, please know that I'm scared of you. I am afraid of you. I know in your mindset, I don't even know what the mindset of kids are these days. You may be a child or whatever like that. But in my mindset, I see somebody that's big, that has different experiences than me and may be able to harm me. I always try to think positive about things, but it's, you have to trust your instincts too. But and it made me mad that I thought about that boy afterwards because that person really could do me harm. That's naivety. Stop thinking. I need to stop thinking about people like that. let it go. Pray about it. Let God handle it and let it go. But that dream was really weird. But like I said, it was parallel to real life because, you know, and they hate it when I schedule them to pick that shit up because they're fucking ignoring it. They hate it when I do that. But I mean, it's literally a spot that says return mail, and that's what it is. You know what I'm saying? But they should pick that shit up, you know? And so I guess the dream was like maybe somebody received the request last night, and I don't know, but they fucked my shit up because of that. You know, they cemented my mailbox closed, and I really didn't care about all that because I was like, good, I don't have to worry about it no more. But then I do get stuff in the mail, as y'all can see when y'all saw all that mail piled up on my desk. That you know, that a lot of it, you know, even though it's directed to me, is, you know, stuff that I don't have the time or resources to really go through because it's stuff that, you know, is going to put me in debt. I'm not trying to go there, but like, I shouldn't say it, but yeah, it's going to put me in debt. But, you know, and there's good things to have, but it could cause a situation. But yeah. So then on top of that, part of my list was, you know, there's different places where I try to sell stuff. And, you know, and that's another thing that got me yesterday too, as I was sitting here, you know, planning and making my list and going through stuff. And, you know, some of the stuff it didn't require for me to be on the computer. So I was kind of doing it on the phone, you know, and then I got to the point where I was just like, okay, this is ridiculous because I wanted to do so much. You know, it's like I start working on one thing and this is personal work, right? So I start working on one thing and before you know it, you know, before I get halfway through that, something else comes up and I get diverted towards that and I start working towards that and then something else come up. And I had so much energy yesterday, mental energy, okay, mind energy, where I'm just one thing from the next to the next to the next. And I was like, well, wait a minute, this is getting out of hand because I'm biting off more than I can chew. I need to slow myself down. So, and this is what I want to talk about too. And the reason for me to way for me to slow myself down is release, because when I have too much energy like that, and like I said before, we talked about sexual energy. Like I don't have any real everybody has sexual energy, but not in that lewd, lascivious way that you think, but meaning that that energy is just a buildup of tension and all of that you have inside of yourself. But it's from me, it's like I use it to bring myself down because I'm so focused. I'm like on a whole nother level. I'm so focused and so into stuff. I could literally, if you've seen that sitcom back in the 80s, like Small Wonder, and that little robot was going so fast and it's kind of like that, right? It's like I'm next to the next to the next to the next to the next, and I'm just doing it. And every time I finish one thing or get halfway through something else comes up. I start working on that. And I was like, no, this is ridiculous. I need to stop and I need to slow it down. And so, but my mind still wanted to keep doing all these things, but I was just like, no, you know, that's too much. You can't do 20 things at one time, you know, and for whatever reason, the way the universe is working, it's like whenever I work on stuff, it'll keep, but it's not the universe. Like I said, I think it's all algorithm and shit. You work on one thing and then another thing will pop up, you know, and draw your attention to that, which, you know, it's okay, but I need to just, you know, fuck multitasking. You know, if it's one or two things that you have planned for a long time, good. But if you start doing, you work on one thing, you pick up another, that's fine. But then next thing you know, you pick up a third, then a fourth, and a fifth. You can't be doing 5 things at one time. You know, when I was younger, that was looked good upon. That was multitasking, and all admins multitask. But when you're older, fuck that. You have one goal. You try to get that shit done. So, you know, I had to slow myself down. So I had to release that energy. And that's what they talked about. And I wish I could talk about this. I guess I can, but people misperceive stuff and shift the stuff so wrong all the time. But, you know, sacred sexuality, basically. And this is for the males. And I don't know, I think it should be true for the females too. But men, they were saying men should not spill their seed so much because your seed is energy. And, you know, in any kind of way, whether it's doing it self-induced or with somebody or whatever, especially if it's with somebody. But basically, you know, you're letting that energy build up. And then every once in a while, you cleanse that energy. Now, I feel the same thing about female for the same thing is that I don't know if it's true because this didn't come from anybody else, but this portion came from me. You know, the guy was telling me about the guy energy. But for me, I think it's true for women too. Because like if I have too much negativity, like people sometimes they use it for stress relief, right? And it's purely stress relief. It's the same, bodily functions, but it's stress relief. It's with an end in mind. Just like when you go to a doctor's visit, I don't know, but I heard when men go to a doctor visit, it's a little different than when women go. There's different things that go on that I was appalled to hear. I was like, what? And yeah, they told me that's what goes on. Maybe it shouldn't go on, but that's what happens. But what ended up happening was, like I said, expulsion of energy. Like when you get all this negative buildup, like when they say and there's a reason for everything. That's why I wish I could study sexuality, or not sexuality in a sex manner, but sexuality in the functions of, the real life true functions of your body releasing that energy, through, release. But so, when you get a lot of negativity build up, and that's why people say that they need to do that whenever they're real stressed out, because it releases all that negative energy, And in part, I think that's why exercise is so important too, because it releases the sweat. When I used to work out and stuff like that, all those toxins, so I need to find an alternative, but I always feel bad, or sometimes I don't feel bad, but sometimes I do, because sometimes it's hard because we're trained not to use our own minds to perform that anymore, So sometimes you have outside things that are interacting with that. It's not good. But, and I'm being real convoluted, and I'm sorry because, I wish we could talk about stuff like this. I mean, it needs to be talked about. And the other, purpose of releasing energy, one is negativity, negative stress, whatever, you're getting rid of all of that. The second one is because you have too much energy, too much positive stress. You're going too fast. You need to slow yourself down so it drains you, so it drains your energy a little bit. So I had the energy drain is basically what I did. Then once that energy drained, I was okay. And that's when I was able to productively start working on shit one at a time in a row, one at a time. But the reason that I was all over the place with the way I was working with it before is because I didn't make my little list. And I didn't make my list because I wasn't doing it in my computer. I was sitting on the recliner and going through my list that way. Everything I could do on the phone, I was doing on the phone, right? But no, I need to make my list to keep it focused one at a time. And I thought about it before I released that energy because I hate the way that I feel when I release it and I feel negativity. So I was just like, I thought about it. I said, do I really want to do this? Because if I release this energy, how am I going to feel about it afterwards? And I had to think about the consequences. Okay, if I don't release the energy, I'm going to be frustrated and I'm going to be going through all this stuff and it's going to be all, it's too many things at one time. And I think right now, the way that I'm wired, because I was wired up, like really, I didn't want to let it go. I wanted to do all of it. I'm not going to want to let it go. And it's going to end up slowing, even though I'm doing a lot of things, it's just going to end up slowing down the process for real. Because not one thing is going to get done. I'm going from one to the next. So I was just like, no, I need to release this energy. So I thought, I literally thought it out before I released it. And I was like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And I did. And once I released that energy, it got it so I didn't have all that pent up in me. I was good. I made my list, went to the computer and worked on shit. And like I said, that's when everything else started coming in to interrupt it. Now, the other thing that I noticed was really weird, and I started asking people, were they black homeowners? Because I had something really weird happen, and I do have a question about it. So if you are a black homeowner, if you can, hit me up because I have a question, but I don't want to ask it in detail out loud to everyone because it's a private situation. That was weird to me. I was like, what in the world? But yeah. So anyways, I love you guys. Peace out. Bye.